The Hidden Guardian. Lucas Bennett never imagined he'd be humanity's last hope. At 12 years old, his greatest achievements had been maintaining his top ranking in Crystalline Wars Online and memorizing every maintenance shaft in the Axiom cruiser. But as plasma bolts lit up the corridor like deadly fireworks, he realized his gaming obsession might be the key to humanity's survival. The whole ship shuddered as another explosion rocked its hull. Commander Voss's voice crackled through the ship-wide comms, desperation evident in his tone. "Keep pushing forward. We can't let them reach the bridge." Deep in maintenance shaft C7, Lucas pressed his hands against his ears, trying to block out the sounds of warfare above. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird seeking escape. The metallic taste of fear filled his mouth as he watched shadows dance across the grating above his head. "This is not how I planned to spend my Saturday," he muttered, crawling deeper into the cramped service tunnel. The maintenance shaft was a maze of pipes and conduits, barely wide enough for his skinny frame. He'd memorized these passages during countless games of hide-and-seek with the crew's children, back when the Axiom cruiser was just a peacekeeping vessel, before Queen Xerxes's forces turned it into a battleground. Another explosion sent tremors through the ship. Through a ventilation grate, Lucas caught glimpses of boots rushing past, both human and alien. The distinctive click-clack of Sentinel Guard talons against the metal floor made his blood run cold. "Sector 7 is compromised," a robotic voice announced over the ship's speakers. "All non-combat personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Sector 7. That's where Mom was stationed." Lucas felt his chest tighten. The last time he'd seen her, she'd been rushing to the medical bay to help with casualties. She'd made him promise to hide in the maintenance tunnels until she came to get him. That was 3 hours ago. A new sound cut through the chaos, a haunting musical trilling that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. The boots and talons above stopped moving. Even the weapon's fire ceased. Lucas held his breath, pressing his eye against the grate. Through the narrow slats, he saw them, the elite guards of Queen Xerxes, their crystalline armor catching the emergency lights and fracturing them into rainbow patterns across the walls. They moved with inhuman grace, their four-armed bodies swaying like dancers as they formed an honor guard in the corridor. And then she appeared. Queen Xerxes didn't walk so much as glide, her translucent robes rippling around her tall frame like liquid starlight. Her skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in time with what Lucas assumed was her heartbeat. But it was her eyes that captured his attention, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle on her elegant face, each one a different color, gold, silver, and deepest purple. Such primitive defenses, the Queen's voice resonated in Lucas's head, though her mouth didn't move. "Your species clings to hope like children clutching their toys." Lucas accidentally shifted his weight, causing a tiny scraping sound. The Queen's head snapped toward the maintenance shaft, all 3 eyes focusing on the grate. For one terrifying moment, Lucas was sure she could see him in the darkness. An explosion rocked the ship again, stronger than the others. The lights flickered, and when they stabilized, the Queen and her guards were moving on, their crystalline boots chiming against the floor like distant bells. Lucas released the breath he'd been holding, his hands shaking as he wiped cold sweat from his forehead. He needed to find his mom, but first, he needed a plan. As he stared at the ship's neural interface port glowing softly in the wall beside him, the beginnings of an idea started to form. He pulled the neural interface cable from his pocket, the one he'd borrowed from the engineering bay last week. His mother would kill him if she knew he'd been messing with ship systems, but right now, that seemed like the least of his problems. With trembling fingers, he plugged one end into the port and pressed the other against his temple. "Okay, computer," he whispered, "show me something useful." The sensation hit him like a bucket of ice water. Data flooded his mind, not in streams of code like he'd expected, but in bursts of color, sound, and sensation. This wasn't the modern ship's computer he was used to playing with. This was something else, something older. "Welcome, young one," a voice whispered in his mind. It reminded him of his grandmother's wind chimes. "I am ARYA, Advanced Reconnaissance Intelligence Archive. It has been 947 years since my last direct neural interface." Lucas almost yanked the cable out in surprise. "You're an AI. But the Axiom's computer system is a primitive overlay," Arya interrupted, amusement coloring her digital voice. "I was here long before this vessel bore the name Axiom. When the Crystalline Empire first reached for the stars, I was their guardian, their keeper of secrets." His heart skipped a beat. "The Crystalline Empire? You mean Queen Xerxes's people?" Before Arya could respond, the sound of plasma fire erupted above him, followed by shouts and the thunder of running feet. Through the grating, Lucas saw a group of humans in mismatched combat gear sprinting down the corridor, firing behind them. "Fall back to position Delta," a woman's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "Rico, Martinez, covering fire. Jackson, get that door sealed." Lucas watched as a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair and a scarred face directed her team with the precision of a master strategist. Her black armor bore no official insignia, but the others followed her orders without hesitation. Captain Rodriguez and her resistance fighters, Arya supplied helpfully. "They've been quite troublesome for the Queen's forces." The resistance fighters disappeared around a corner, but not before Lucas caught a glimpse of what they were running from, a wave of crystalline soldiers, their armor now glowing with an angry red light. But something about their movement caught his attention. "Wait," Lucas murmured. "Replay that last bit." The memory flashed through his mind, courtesy of Arya. He watched the crystalline soldiers again, noting how they moved in perfect synchronization. Too perfect. "Arya, are they connected somehow?" Very observant, the AI's tone held approval. "The Queen's elite guard share a psychic link. It makes them devastatingly effective in combat, but every strength can be a weakness," Lucas finished. He felt Arya's appreciation ripple through the neural link. "But how does it work? There must be something controlling it, coordinating them." "The Queen's crown," Arya's voice took on a conspiratorial tone. "A crystalline matrix of immense power. It amplifies her natural telepathic abilities, allowing her to control her forces with a single thought. But the crown is also unstable, one might even say vulnerable to certain frequencies." A plan started forming in Lucas's mind, but he'd need help. As if reading his thoughts, and maybe she was, Arya brought up a schematic of the ship, highlighting a path through the maintenance shafts. "Captain Rodriguez and her team are regrouping 3 sections ahead. They might be interested in what we've discovered, though I should warn you, the captain has a rather direct approach to problem solving." Lucas unplugged the neural interface, wincing at the sudden emptiness in his head. But Arya's presence lingered like a ghost of a smile, and the path to the resistance fighters burned bright in his memory. "Time to make some new friends," he muttered, stuffing the cable back in his pocket as he crawled through the shaft toward his destination. He could have sworn he heard Arya's wind chime laugh echoing in his mind. "The Resistance's gambit. You want us to trust the fate of humanity to a kid who plays video games?" Captain Rodriguez's eyebrow arched so high it nearly disappeared into her silver hairline. The resistance fighters around her shifted uncomfortably, their weapons never leaving the maintenance shaft entrance where Lucas had emerged. "Not just any video games," Lucas countered, trying to keep his voice steady. "Crystalline Wars Online. I've been the top-ranked human player for 6 months." A mechanical laugh echoed through the makeshift command center. From the shadows stepped a figure that made Lucas's jaw drop. The android's body was a patchwork of military-grade armor and salvaged ship parts, but its face was a masterpiece of artistic engineering, perfectly sculpted silver features that moved with surprising humanity. "The boy speaks truth, Captain," the android's voice carried an accent Lucas couldn't quite place. "I am CO-742, and I have witnessed his strategies in the virtual arena. He has defeated more crystalline players than anyone in the game's history. Rodriguez's eyes narrowed. Co-742. The same CO-742 who helped design the Queen's security systems before defecting? The very same, the android bowed with theatrical flourish. And I must say, young Lucas's plan has merit. The game's combat mechanics were based on actual crystalline military protocols. Their love of symmetry and patterns makes them predictable. Lucas nodded enthusiastically. Every security checkpoint follows the same sequence. It's like a rhythm game, but with deadly consequences. The guards move in patterns of 7, always maintaining perfect geometric formations. Break the pattern, and the whole system falls apart. CO-742 finished, metallic lips curving into a smile. Just like in the game. Rodriguez paced the room, her combat boots silent against the metal floor. And you're sure this AI, this ARYA, can help us generate the right frequency to disrupt the Queen's crown? She's already working on it. Lucas pulled out his neural interface cable, but we need to get closer to the throne room. The signal has to be precise, or it won't work. That's suicide, Lieutenant Martinez spoke up from his position by the door. The throne room is surrounded by 3 layers of security. Even if we could get past the outer ring. We won't have to, CO-742 interrupted, his silver eyes glowing with sudden inspiration. The maintenance shafts, they run directly above the throne room. The crystallines never bothered securing them because their bodies can't fit through the passages. Lucas felt a grin spread across his face. And I know those tunnels better than anyone on this ship. Still leaves us with the problem of getting past the outer security ring, Rodriguez mused. Those sensors will detect any human or mechanical life forms approaching the restricted zone. Not if they're looking for the wrong thing, Lucas said, remembering countless hours of gaming strategy. In Crystalline Wars, I developed a technique. The guards don't actually see intruders, they sense energy patterns. Their detection systems are calibrated to recognize anything that doesn't match crystalline signatures. But what if we could mask ourselves with crystalline energy? CO-742's eyes flickered with interest. The fallen guards' armor. Their power cores are still active. Exactly, Lucas continued. If we can salvage enough cores and create a distributed energy field, we could make ourselves appear as background radiation to their sensors, Rodriguez finished, a predatory smile spreading across her scarred face. CO-742, can you modify the armor cores? The android flexed his mechanical fingers. With adequate time and resources, certainly. But we'll need a diversion. The Queen's forces will notice if we start collecting their fallen comrades. Leave that to me, a new voice spoke from the shadows. A woman in scorched medical scrubs stepped forward, and Lucas's heart nearly stopped. Mom! Dr. Sarah Bennett pulled her son into a fierce hug before turning to face Rodriguez. The medical bay is still under our control. We've been treating both human and crystalline wounded. I can request a detail to collect the fallen for proper ceremonial handling. Their cultural obsession with symmetry extends to death rites, they won't question it. Rodriguez studied the doctor for a long moment before nodding. How long will you need? 2 hours, Sarah replied. Maybe 3. You have 1, Rodriguez stated flatly. The Queen's forces are pushing toward the bridge. Once they take it, they'll have full control of the ship's systems. Except they won't, Lucas interjected. Not really. Arya's been here since before the crystallines even had spaceflight. She's the ship's true heart, and she's on our side. The ancient AI's presence whispered through his neural link, confirming his words with a burst of warm approval. Lucas quickly outlined Arya's capabilities and her history with the Crystalline Empire. A hidden AI, CO-742 mused. No wonder their attempts to fully integrate with the ship's systems have been problematic. Rodriguez considered the information, her tactical mind visibly processing the advantages and risks. Doctor, begin salvage operations. CO, 742, start modifying those cores. Martinez, coordinate with the bridge, tell them to make it look good, but keep the Queen's forces occupied for at least another hour. She turned to Lucas, her expression softening slightly. You, young man, are going to show me every maintenance shaft access point between here and the throne room. I want alternate routes, emergency exits, and any structural weaknesses you found during your explorations. Lucas felt his face flush. Yes, ma'am. As the others dispersed to their tasks, Sarah pulled her son aside. Lucas, are you sure about this? It's not too late to get you to the escape pods. He looked up at his mother, seeing the worry lines etched around her eyes, the traces of ash and blood on her scrubs. Mom, I have to do this. All those hours playing Crystalline Wars, memorizing the maintenance shafts, maybe it wasn't just games. Maybe I was preparing for this moment without knowing it. Sarah's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Your father would be so proud of you right now. She touched the silver pendant at her throat, his father's last gift before his research vessel disappeared in crystalline space 3 years ago. A distant explosion rocked the ship, and Rodriguez's voice cut through the moment. Dr. Bennett, we need those cores. Lucas, you're with me. As Lucas followed the captain toward the command center's holomap, Arya's presence brushed against his mind. Your mother is correct, young one. This is what you were meant for, though perhaps not in the way she thinks. What do you mean? The Crystalline Empire wasn't always as you see it now, Arya's voice held ancient sorrow. Queen Xerxes's rise to power changed everything. She corrupted the very principles our civilization was built upon. The game you love so much. It's based on the original crystalline combat forms, an art of harmony and balance, not dominance. Lucas froze. Wait, you said, our civilization. Arya, are you a crystalline AI? Yes. The last of my kind, created before Xerxes discovered how to bend synthetic minds to her will. I've waited centuries for someone like you, Lucas. Someone who could understand both worlds, human ingenuity and crystalline precision. Before Lucas could process this revelation, Rodriguez called him over to review the maintenance shaft schematics. But as he traced possible routes through the ship's arterial network, his mind raced with implications. This wasn't just about saving the Axiom anymore. This was about saving 2 civilizations from a tyrant who had twisted them against each other. And somewhere above them, in her makeshift throne room, Queen Xerxes sat unaware that her greatest threat wasn't the resistance fighters or the ship's crew, it was a 12-year-old boy with a neural interface cable and a gaming addiction, guided by an AI who remembered what her people used to be. Frequencies of war. The crystalline power core hummed in Lucas's hands, its faceted surface casting prismatic patterns across the maintenance shaft's walls. Through his neural link with Arya, he could feel the core's resonance, a complex harmony of frequencies that made his teeth ache. Fascinating, CO 742 murmured, adjusting something inside the modified crystalline armor piece spread before them. Each core generates a unique frequency pattern, like a fingerprint. The Queen's crown must act as a conductor, synchronizing these individual songs into a single symphony of control. That's why the guards move in perfect unison, Lucas realized. They're not just following orders, they're part of the same song. The android's silver fingers danced across the armor's internal matrix. And soon, thanks to your mother's salvage operation, we'll be playing a very different tune. They had converted their temporary base in the maintenance shaft into a makeshift workshop. Tools and crystalline components surrounded them, along with the fruits of Dr. Bennett's ceremonial collection mission, 12 sets of fallen guard armor, their power cores still pulsing with ethereal light. Core synchronization at 67%, Arya reported through Lucas's neural interface. But Captain Rodriguez should know, the Queen's forces have breached the secondary defense line. They'll reach the bridge within the hour. Lucas relayed the information through his comm unit. Rodriguez's response was immediate and terse, then we move in 50 minutes. No more delays. CO-742's metallic features arranged themselves into what might have been concern. The masking field isn't stable yet. If we rush this, we won't get another chance, Lucas interrupted. Mom said they're setting up some kind of device in the medical bay. Something about species compatibility analysis. Whatever the Queen's planning, it's bigger than just taking the ship. The android fell silent, his silver eyes dimming as he processed this information. Finally, he nodded. Very well. Help me with the final calibrations. If we're going to die anyway, we might as well do it spectacularly. As they worked, Arya's presence in Lucas's mind grew stronger, more urgent. There's something you need to understand about the Queen's plan, young one. The device in the medical bay, it's called the Genesis Matrix. In the wrong hands, it could rewrite the genetic code of an entire species. Lucas's hands froze over the power core he was adjusting. You mean? Xarxis doesn't want to destroy humanity, Arya confirmed. She wants to remake your species in her image. A perfect synthesis of human adaptability and crystalline power. Those who survived the process would become her most devoted servants, their very DNA singing in harmony with her crown. The implications made Lucas's stomach churn. He thought of his mother in the medical bay, working among the wounded, unknowingly helping to set up the instrument of humanity's transformation. We have to stop her. Yes, Arya agreed. But Lucas, there's more. The Genesis Matrix requires an enormous amount of power, more than even the Axiom's engines can provide. The only way Xarxis could power such a device is by overloading her crown, Lucas finished, the pieces clicking into place. That's why the crown's frequency is unstable. She's pushing it beyond its limits. Which means, CO-742 interjected, his audio sensors having picked up Lucas's side of the conversation, if we time our disruption field precisely, we could trigger a catastrophic feedback loop in the crown's matrix. And take out the Queen's entire control system, Lucas nodded. But the explosion would be significant, the android confirmed. Anyone in the throne room would likely not survive. Lucas swallowed hard. Then we need to modify the plan. Get everyone out before we trigger the disruption. Impossible, Rodriguez's voice came through the comm. She must have been monitoring their channel. The Queen's guards are connected to her mind. The moment we start an evacuation, she'll know something's wrong. Not if we give her what she expects to see, Lucas said slowly, an idea forming. HFY, you said the crown synchronizes individual frequency patterns, right? What if we didn't try to mask our energy signatures completely? What if we made them look like part of her song? He could feel the ancient AI's intrigue rippling through their connection. An interesting theory. Instead of hiding from the Queen's power, we could hide within it. But the calculations would need to be perfect. One discordant note would give us away, Lucas finished. But it's not about being perfect. It's about being predictable. The Queen's forces always move in patterns of 7, maintaining geometric formations. If we time our movements to match those patterns, we become part of the background rhythm. CO-742's eyes brightened with understanding. The Queen's own love of symmetry would blind her to our presence. Rodriguez's voice carried a hint of respect. How long to recalibrate the masking field? 20 minutes, the android replied. Maybe 15 with Lucas's help. You have 10. Martinez, get your team in position. Dr. Bennett, begin evacuation procedures for the medical bay, make it look routine, like you're just relocating the wounded to a more secure area. The rest of you, gear up. We move on my mark. As Lucas helped CO-742 reconfigure the power cores, Arya shared one final piece of information. Lucas, there's something you should know about your father's research vessel. His hands stilled over the crystalline matrix. What about it? It didn't disappear by accident. Alexander Bennett discovered something in crystalline space, something that threatened Xerxes's power. The Queen couldn't allow that knowledge to reach Earth. Lucas felt like he'd been punched in the gut. My dad, she killed him. No, Arya's response held a strange note of hope. She captured him. His mind held secrets she needed, about human genetics, about the potential for human crystalline synthesis. He's been her prisoner these past 3 years, helping her perfect the Genesis matrix. He's alive. Lucas whispered. Where? In the secondary lab, adjacent to the throne room. But Lucas, you must understand, your father's consciousness has been integrated into the Queen's network. Breaking her control over him won't be as simple as disrupting the crown's frequency. Before Lucas could respond, Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm, we're out of time. Queen's forces are 30 seconds from the bridge. Everyone in position, Operation Dissonance begins now. Lucas took a deep breath, checking the modified armor one final time. In 10 minutes, they would attempt to infiltrate the most heavily guarded section of the ship. In 20 minutes, they would try to trigger an explosion that could either save humanity or kill everyone in the throne room. And somewhere in that chaos, he had to find a way to save his father from a fate worse than death. Ready? CO 742 asked, offering him a crystalline helmet sized for a human child, one of the many modifications they'd made to the salvaged armor. Lucas nodded, thinking of his father, of his mother in the medical bay, of every human on the ship whose future hung in the balance. Ready. Let's show the Queen what happens when you try to rewrite someone else's song. The android's metallic features shifted into what might have been a smile. That, he said, was almost poetic. Thanks, Lucas replied, securing the helmet. I got it from a game. Harmonies of Deception. The crystalline armor hummed against Lucas's skin as he crawled through the maintenance shaft above the throne room. Each movement had to be precise, synchronized with the pulsing frequencies that Arya fed through his neural interface. One misstep, one out-of-sync motion, and the Queen would sense their presence. Guard rotation in 3, 2, 1. CO 742's whisper came through the comm, barely audible above the armor's resonance. Below them, through the grating, Lucas watched as the Queen's elite guard performed their choreographed dance of position changes. 7 steps forward, pause for 3 beats, quarter turn, repeat. The same patterns he'd memorized in countless gaming sessions, now played out in lethal reality. Now, Arya prompted in his mind. Lucas moved in perfect counterpoint to the guards below, his modified armor's frequency blending with their synchronized song. Rodriguez and her team followed his lead, their movements a carefully orchestrated harmony of deception. Even CO 742, his mechanical body encased in crystalline plating, maintained the rhythm. They had split into 3 teams. Rodriguez and Martinez would create a diversion in the power distribution center, making it look like a cascade failure in the ship's systems. CO 742 would lead a second team to secure the medical bay and stop the Genesis matrix's activation. Lucas, accompanied by 2 of Rodriguez's most skilled operators, would handle the most crucial task, disrupting the Queen's crown. But Lucas had a secret secondary mission, one he hadn't shared with anyone except Arya. He was going to find his father. The secondary lab is 20 meters ahead, Arya guided him. But Lucas, you should prepare yourself. Your father's integration into the Queen's network, it's changed him. How? Lucas whispered, continuing his methodical crawl through the shaft. The human mind isn't designed to process crystalline consciousness. To survive the integration, Alexander Bennett had to compartmentalize. The brilliant scientist, the loving father, those parts of himself are buried beneath layers of crystalline programming. Lucas swallowed hard. Can we bring him back? Perhaps. But it would require a precise application of the same frequencies we'll use to disrupt the crown. Too strong, and we could destroy his mind completely. Too weak, and the Queen's influence will remain. Target in sight, one of Lucas's escorts, a scarred veteran named Chen, reported through the comm, Queen's on her throne, at least 20 elite guards in the chamber. No clear shot at the crown. Lucas peered through the grating. The throne room was a testament to crystalline aesthetics, all geometric patterns and refracted light. Queen Xerxes sat upon a throne that seemed to grow from the deck itself, her three-colored eyes scanning constant streams of data projected in the air before her. The crown on her head pulsed with increasingly unstable energy, sending ripples of discomfort through Lucas's neural link. She's already started the power-up sequence, Arya warned. The Genesis matrix will be ready for full activation in less than 15 minutes. A new figure entered the throne room, and Lucas's heart nearly stopped. The man moved with the same artificial grace as the elite guard, his lab coat replaced by crystalline armor that had grown directly onto his skin. But despite the changes, despite the ethereal light pulsing beneath his flesh, Lucas would know that face anywhere. "Dad," he breathed. Alexander Bennett approached the throne, his movements perfectly synchronized with the guard's endless patterns. "The medical bay preparations are complete, my queen. Dr. Sarah Bennett's evacuation of the wounded has provided excellent cover for moving the final components into position." The Queen's triple-toned voice echoed through the chamber. "Excellent. Your mate's dedication to healing will serve our purpose well. Soon, her efforts will help birth a new era of perfect synthesis." Lucas felt sick. They were using his mother's compassion against her, turning her work in the medical bay into a tool for humanity's transformation. "Rodriguez," he whispered into the comm, "how long until the diversion is ready?" 5 minutes, came the terse reply. "But we've got problems. Queen's forces are adapting to our frequency masking faster than expected. We'll be detected within 10 minutes, maximum." "Won't matter," CO 742's voice crackled through. "Genesis Matrix is powering up now. We need to move immediately, or there won't be any humans left to save." Lucas made a decision. New plan. "Chen, Thompson, get to your secondary positions. I'm going for the crown now." "That's suicide," Chen hissed. "The timing will never be perfect," Lucas finished. "But I've got one advantage the Queen won't expect." He pulled the neural interface cable from his helmet, exposing the crystalline circuitry that CO 742 had modified. With trembling fingers, he connected it to a maintenance port in the shaft's wall. "RYA, remember how you said the crown synchronizes individual frequencies? What if we added your song to the mix?" He felt the ancient AI's surprise ripple through their connection. "Lucas, interfacing directly with the crown's network, the amount of data could overwhelm your consciousness. But it would give us access to everything, the guard's movements, the Genesis Matrix's controls, and..." He glanced at his father's transformed figure, the integration protocols. A moment of silence, then, "It would also alert the Queen to my existence. After 9 centuries of hiding." "Sometimes," Lucas said, remembering countless gaming matches won by sacrificing a powerful piece to achieve victory, "the best moves are the ones that cost us the most." Arya's presence warmed with something like pride. "Very well, young one. But remember, in the crystalline network, thought and reality are one. Whatever you imagine becomes part of the song. Choose your thoughts carefully." Lucas took a deep breath, thinking of his father's bedtime stories about the stars, of his mother's tireless work in the medical bay, of every human in crystalline life hanging in the balance. "Ready," he whispered. Arya's consciousness surged through the neural link, carrying Lucas's mind with it into the vast, harmonious network that connected every crystalline being on the ship. For one overwhelming moment, he was everywhere at once, in the guard's synchronized movements, in the Genesis Matrix's humming circuits, in his father's fragmented memories. And at the center of it all, like a dark star bending light to her will, was Queen Xerxes. Her triple-colored eyes snapped up, widening in shock as she sensed the intrusion. Impossible, her voice echoed through both the physical chamber and the crystalline network. Arya? After all these centuries. Hello, my queen, Arya's response rippled through the collective consciousness. I believe it's time we had a conversation about harmony and control. The queen rose from her throne, crown blazing with power. Seize them. Find the access point. But in the crystalline network, in the space between thought and action, Lucas was already moving. He had played this game countless times before. He knew all the patterns, all the rhythms. And he knew exactly how to break them. Symphony of Liberation. In the crystalline network, thought moved at the speed of light. Lucas experienced reality in two simultaneous streams, his physical body in the maintenance shaft above the throne room, and his consciousness swimming through an ocean of harmonized thoughts and synchronized patterns. Impressive, Queen Xerxes's mind voice rippled through the network. A human child, interfacing directly with crystalline consciousness. Perhaps I underestimated your species' potential. Through the grating, Lucas watched the Queen's guards move with increased urgency, searching for his hidden position. But in the network, he could see the complex frequencies that guided their movements, and the weaknesses in their patterns. It wasn't just me, Lucas projected back, pushing his thoughts through Arya's protective presence. Everything I know about crystalline patterns came from a game. Your people's true combat forms, preserved as entertainment. Funny how things work out. The Queen's amusement tasted like bitter crystals in his mind. Ah yes, Arya's final act of defiance before I thought I'd erased her. Embedding our sacred forms into human recreation. Tell me, old friend, did you really think teaching humans our ways would save them? Not just teach them, Arya responded, her ancient consciousness expanding through the network like a dawn breaking over crystal mountains. Prepare them. Every human who played that game learned to think like us, to move like us, to understand the beauty of our patterns. And one of them learned well enough to beat us at our own game. Lucas felt the Queen's attention focus on him with laser intensity. In the physical world, her crown blazed brighter, its unstable energies sending cascading reflections through the throne room. The Genesis matrix is already charging, Xerxes projected. In minutes, humanity will transcend its crude physical form. They will join our song, whether they choose to or not. Even your father, young one, sees the perfection in our unity. She gestured, and Alexander Bennett stepped forward, his eyes glowing with crystalline light. The transformation is evolution, son. Join us willingly, and your mind will remain intact. Lucas felt his father's fractured consciousness through the network, brilliant fragments of memory and emotion, buried under layers of crystalline programming. But there was something else there too, something the Queen hadn't noticed. A pattern within the pattern. A game within the game. You know, Dad, Lucas projected, letting his thoughts ripple through both the network and his comm unit, I finally beat your high score in Stellar Rangers last week. Remember how you used to let me win when I was little? But then you taught me your favorite strategy. Sacrifice the flagship to save the fleet. Alexander's voice carried the faintest tremor, an almost imperceptible break in the Queen's perfect harmony. In the network, Lucas felt his father's consciousness stir, memories breaking through the crystalline programming like roots cracking stone. Game nights at the kitchen table. Scientific discussions about the stars. The day he gave Lucas's mother the silver pendant. The Queen's triple-colored eyes narrowed. Enough of this. Guards, sweep the maintenance shafts. Find the boy. But Lucas was already implementing his own strategy, one born from countless hours of gaming and Arya's ancient knowledge. Through their neural link, he began transmitting frequencies, not to attack the Queen's network, but to become part of it. Rodriguez, he whispered into his comm, hit the power center now. The ship shuddered as explosions rocked the distribution hub. Emergency lights flashed, and the Queen's guards moved to defensive positions. Perfect geometric patterns, just as Lucas had predicted. CO-742, medical base status. The android's response was immediate, Genesis matrix charging sequence interrupted. Dr. Bennett is evacuating the last patients. But Lucas, the power surge, it's feeding back into the Queen's crown. Exactly as planned. In the crystalline network, Lucas began his real attack. Not with brute force, but with memory. He pushed every game he'd ever played into the collective consciousness, every pattern he'd learned, every strategy he'd mastered. Through Arya's connection, these memories merged with ancient crystalline combat forms, creating a cascade of competing frequencies. The Queen's crown flickered, its energy fluctuating as it tried to maintain control of too many patterns at once. "What are you doing?" Xarxis demanded, real fear creeping into her voice. "Showing you a new way to play," Lucas replied. Through the network, he reached out to his father's fragmented mind, using their shared memories of games and strategies as anchors. "Dad, remember what you always told me about chess? How the queen might be the most powerful piece. But it's the pawns that change the game," Alexander finished, his consciousness pushing back against the queen's control. All around the throne room, other crystalline integrated humans began to stir, their own memories awakening. The queen staggered, her crown pulsing erratically. "No. The harmony must be maintained. The harmony was never yours to control," Arya's voice rang through the network. "True harmony comes from choice, from individual songs joining together. What you created was just another game, and games can be won." Lucas felt the network shifting, frequencies changing as more and more integrated humans began breaking free of the Queen's influence. In the physical world, his father ripped away from the guard formation, his movements no longer bound by their perfect patterns. "Lucas," Arya urged, "the crown's matrix is reaching critical instability. If it detonates with this much power, everyone dies," Lucas finished. "Unless..." He thought of crystalline wars, of all the matches he'd won not by destroying his opponents, but by transforming their energy against them. "Arya, can we redirect the crown's power surge through the maintenance shafts?" The ancient AI caught his plan immediately. The shaft's neural interfaces, yes. They could act as conduits, dispersing the energy harmlessly through the ship's hull. But Lucas, maintaining that kind of connection, could fry my brain, he acknowledged. "Good thing I've had lots of practice multitasking." Through their neural link, Lucas began reconfiguring the maintenance shaft's interfaces, creating a network of energy conduits. In the throne room below, chaos erupted as freed humans fought alongside resistance members who had used the confusion to breach the chamber. Queen Xarxis raised her hands, the crown blazing like a supernova. "If I cannot have harmony, I will have silence." The crown's matrix began to overload, its unstable frequencies building toward detonation. But Lucas was ready. As the energy reached its peak, he opened his mind fully to the network, becoming a living conductor for the power surge. Pain exploded behind his eyes as raw crystalline energy coursed through his consciousness. Through blurred vision, he saw his father fighting through guard formations, reaching for the maintenance shaft's access panel. Captain Rodriguez and her team had the Queen surrounded, their modified armor allowing them to resist her weakening control. "Lucas," Arya's voice seemed to come from very far away, "the energy is too much for your human mind to process. You have to let go." "No," he gritted through clenched teeth. "Not until everyone's clear." "Dad. Mom, they need more time." The Queen's crown reached critical mass, its light becoming blinding. But as its power surged through Lucas's makeshift conduit network, something unexpected happened. The crystalline energy, rather than destroying the ship's systems, began to merge with them. Arya's ancient programming interacted with the power surge, creating new patterns, new harmonies. Through the haze of pain and sensory overload, Lucas felt the ship changing. Crystalline technology integrated with human engineering, not as Xarxis had planned, but in a true synthesis. The axiom itself was evolving. With a final, desperate cry, Queen Xarxis collapsed, her crown shattering into 1,000 glittering shards. The released energy flowed through Lucas's network, transforming the ship's very structure into a hybrid of both technologies. The last thing Lucas saw before consciousness fled was his father's face appearing above him, human eyes bright with tears and pride. The last thing he heard was Arya's wind-chime laugh, no longer just in his mind, but resonating through the newly transformed ship. "Well played, young one," the ancient AI whispered. "It seems you've changed more than just the game." Epilogue. 3 weeks later, Lucas stood with his parents on the Axiom's observation deck, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. The ship's crystalline-enhanced hull caught sunlight in new ways, creating ever-changing patterns that mirrored the harmonious integration of its systems. Captain Rodriguez had been appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the free crystalline systems, those that had broken away from Xarxis's empire after news of her defeat spread. CO-742 had chosen to stay aboard the Axiom, fascinated by the unique blend of technologies he helped maintain. An Arya, she was everywhere now, her consciousness expanded throughout the transformed ship. She had become a bridge between two civilizations, just as she had always hoped to be. "Ready for your next game?" his father asked, fully human again but with a newfound appreciation for both sides of his son's favorite pastime. Lucas touched the neural interface port, now a permanent part of the ship's hybrid systems. "Actually, I was thinking of designing a new one. Something that combines the best of both worlds." Through the ship's network, he felt Arya's approving presence. The ancient AI had been right, harmony wasn't about control or domination. It was about finding the patterns that connected everything, about turning conflict into cooperation, about transforming enemies into allies. And sometimes, it took a child who understood games to show adults how to play together.